Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years. They are still a relatively new addition to the Swedish beer scene, but they are very, very well respected. And I would say that this brewery is best known for their different kinds of New England Hazy IPA and also for their big fruity juicy sour beers, the Berliner Weisses and Goses and things like this. And if those are two style categories that catch your fancy, then this is one of the Swedish breweries that I highly recommend that you check out. I've seriously enjoyed the beers that I've had from these guys over the last couple of years. So the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one of their latest releases through Systembolaget here in Sweden, and I've heard very, very good things about it actually. So I'm very curious to see what it's going to have in store for us. It's always nice to review the new beers from them. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get the Gothenburg catchphrase in when we're reviewing Gothenburg beers because it is just channel tradition these days. And for this review then, we are going to return to the wonderful DuckPond Brewing, known originally as Mikrofonbryggeriet. But this particular beer is called Flipper. It comes in at 4.5% ABV. It is a Gose with raspberry, blueberry, mango and passionfruit in it. So this beer was released as part of the Lokal och Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for April of 2022, and it is one that has just been sitting in my fridge a little bit and I didn't get around to actually reviewing this one. I just kind of wasn't in the mood for sour beers for a little while actually, but I think now is a good time to crack open this one. But yeah, the Flipper, 4.5% Gose from DuckPond Brewing in Gothenburg here in Sweden. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from DuckPond Brewing before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about DuckPond Brewing then. So, DuckPond Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, were previously known as Mikrofonbryggeriet, or the Microphone Brewery, as you might say in English. And this company is the brainchild of Nikola Sarsevich, who is a singer and songwriter for the band Millencolin, who have been making music since 1993. And I did have a listen to them, and they're pretty good actually, I have to say. But the band was originally based in Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and then they took a break, and at this point Nikola moved over to Gothenburg, Göteborg on the west coast. But in 2013, he began homebrewing with his friend Christian Silva while he was studying international marketing in Hovde, and the two were just making very small batches of beer, 20 litres at a time, and then Nikola really enjoyed this, and so he went down to Berlin in Germany to do a 2-week brewing course. But the two then started the company together officially, and it was based for a little while in Nikola's house, and at this point they were brewing 200-litre batches. So in the summer of 2019 they changed their name, and the main reason for this was they felt that Mikrofonbryggeriet was a little difficult for foreign people to spell, and they wanted something that was a little bit more kind of English friendly so their beers could be exported a wee bit more. But over the following years since they did that, they've been working to increase their output and their international sales, and in that year 2019 they produced around 70,000 litres. These guys are also one of the owners of the Wizard Brewing brand, along with Morgendagens, who are also a very well respected Gothenburg sour beer brewery. But originally DuckPond were producing most of their beers at Popels Brewery, which is in Jonsered, out to the kind of east of Gothenburg, and also at Odd Island, who, if I remember correctly, are based in Mölndal to the south of the city. But these days they have their own premises in Kungston, which is kind of right in the middle of Gothenburg, and they recently hired Magnus Lorraine as their main brewer. But as of May 2022, there have been 60 or so different beers released under the DuckPond brewing name, and before that there were about 20 different beers released under the Microphone Bryggeriet name. And I'm not sure whether any of the Microphone Bryggeriet recipes have been resurrected, if you like, and sold under different names under the DuckPond brewing name, but there were some very good beers in that Microphone one. I think I reviewed maybe 2 or 3 from Microphone Bryggeriet. So yeah, those were very nice, just as good as the DuckPond ones, of course. But yeah, there was about 20 or so under that name, and of course 60 now. So this brewery has produced in total about 88 different kinds of beer. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about DuckPond Brewing for the moment. The only other thing to add to that is what I said earlier, that these guys tend to focus on the New England hazy IPAs and also the kind of fruity, juicy Berliner Weisse Gose type sour beers. So yeah, if those are your things, then this is a brewery that you definitely want to check out. So yeah, that's all I can tell you about DuckPond Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer itself then. So I'll let you have a little look at the can art on this one. It is kind of a bit plain actually compared to what we've seen from DuckPond Brewing before. This one is a 330ml can, and I was trying to remember this before the video. I can't remember how many beers we've had in 330ml cans from DuckPond Brewing before. Mainly they tend to be in 440s. But there you can see on the back of the can there is the DuckPond Brewing symbol. But yeah, as we said earlier, this one comes in at 4.5% ABV. It is a Gose with raspberry, blueberry, mango and passion fruit. So yeah, quite an interesting fruit mix there. A good mix of tropical fruit and berry, of course. And as you know, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I love a good berry sour, but I'm also quite partial to a tropical fruit leaning sour beer as well. So yeah, I think we can crack on with this one and see how we go. But like I said, this was released as part of the Lokal Småskaligt assortment through Systembolaget for April of 2022. And I can't remember how much I would have paid for this, but maybe in the region of like 40 Swedish kroner. So that is €4, maybe about £3.50 sterling, and maybe about $4.50 American, although the euro and the American dollar are very close these days. But yeah, you can see the can's sweating a little bit because it is quite warm in here, and generally warm in Sweden at the moment because we're getting towards the middle of May and the summer's coming. But yeah, let's crack this guy open and see how we get on then. A 4.5% blueberry, mango, raspberry and passion fruit Gose. Looking forward to this. Yeah. Oh, and it's going to be a nice, very bright red colour, this one. Let's look at this. Now, as I've told you before, I love these big kind of modern sour beers. You know, they're quite simple in their kind of aroma and flavour profiles, but if they're done well, they can just be absolutely beautiful. And you can see the head on that one is just disappearing very, very quickly. So we'll say something about that before it completely disappears. You could see that when this beer poured, it poured with about a 2/3 finger of a frothy. I would say, I'll just turn it around here so you can have a look at it. You can see that it's that nice kind of sort of pinky violet colour head that you get on this one. Just look at that. But it was a mix of very small bubbles, but you're getting some nice bigger bubbles in there as well. But you can see that this beer has poured a lovely kind of bright, I would say burgundy colour. This one, it's quite akin to the Heart of Midlothian football shirt. Some of my Scottish followers don't like me saying that because they're big Hibees fans, Hibs. But yeah, this one is a lovely kind of big, bright burgundy colour actually. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few different things. One is the type of malts in your malt base. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in will affect the colour of the beer too. And when it comes to styles like the Berliner Weisse and the Gose, then yeah, quite often in the modern ones you are going to get the colours coming from the fruits. And when this one's got raspberry and blueberry in it, you can kind of understand why it comes out this lovely kind of bright burgundy colour for sure. But it looks very, very nice. If we shine the light through this beer, you can see that it is pretty damn opaque, to be honest with you. And the haze in these beers is caused by the oat content, the wheat content, and also the yeast to a degree as well. But this one is pretty damn opaque. Let me just clear away a little bit of the condensation on the glass here, because you can see there is a little bit of sediment in the bottom of this one. You can see little bits of the oaty and wheaty stuff just kind of lingering there, and that is just because I've had this beer in the fridge for a little while. This one just kind of got pushed to the back and I never had a look at it. I've got a little bit of an excess of beer just now, should we say, so I need to start working my way through these and just at least get on top of the April things I've got left and the May things before I go back to Scotland for a little while. But yeah, in terms of what you would expect from a kind of modern Gose, Berliner Weisse type sour beer, there's nothing really there's nothing really unusual about this one. There's not much in the way of visible carbonation, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass at the bottom, and you can see a few little ones going up toward the bottom of that head there. You can see a few bubbles surfacing, but the head has completely disappeared, and this beer looks as you would expect from this style. So let's crack on with the aroma then and see how we get on with this one. I'm just going to say this beer does contain barley malt, wheat and oats. We should say that. It doesn't actually mention salt, because that's one of the things. They used to put a little bit of salt in these Gose beers, but yeah, it doesn't seem to be mentioned. Never seems to be mentioned on the different kind of recipe lists and things that you see. But let's look at the aroma of this one then, guys. Oh yeah, very, very nice. Yeah, when it comes to these DuckPond sour beers, and you know, there's a few other very good sour beer breweries in the Gothenburg area. Fermenterna, Morgendagens, to name two of my other favourite ones. These, don't know if we can call them Nordic sours, but these modern sours that you're getting in the Scandinavian countries are just absolutely beautiful. Straight away with this one, it's just big and creamy, and it's got that lovely juicy, fruity smoothness to it. It's absolutely lovely, this beer. This is straight up, you know, this is up there with all the beers that we've had before from DuckPond Brewing. Another brewery that I really like in Sweden in this particular category at the moment is Elm 11, who are based here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. These guys are doing, you know, DuckPond are doing some awesome stuff. And as I said to you, the thing with these beers is they are very simple and straightforward in terms of their flavour profile and aroma profiles, but they're just so nice. If they're done properly, these beers are just so nice, and I've got the feeling that this one is going to be yet another example of a really solid sour beer from DuckPond Brewing. But yeah, first, straight away with this beer, the basic impression of this one is that it comes across as a big, smooth, kind of creamy sour beer. You can smell that big oaty kind of creamy malt base. There's a little bit of that kind of petit filou yogurt sort of thing. It's got big, juicy, fruity characteristics, and you just get a little tiny bit of that kind of placebo green hoppy kind of thing coming out of it. But beautiful smelling beer, this. Let's break the aroma down for you a wee bit more and just describe it in depth for you. So on the the malty side of things then, so backbone of the beer, you get a teeny tiny little bit of like a fresh bread hedgehog type thing out of this. So yeah, definitely some straight up, you do get a little bit of that kind of straight up kind of fresh fluffy white bread out of this one too, but immediately on top of that you can smell the wheat and the oats just going to work on this one, and they mix together and create that big thick creamy sort of petit filou yogurt type thing that you get out of this one. You know, you could be forgiven from the aroma of this beer, you could be forgiven for thinking this one contains a little bit of lactose, but according to the ingredients list it doesn't, and of course you do have to disclose that because you have people that are lactose intolerant, lactards, whatever you want to say. But yeah, the malty backbone in this beer is absolutely lovely. I really like how this one goes about its business. Yeah, a little bit of bread crust, that dense white bread from the barley malt, and then on top of that you've just got that really thick, dense wheaty, oaty type thing coming out of this one. Yeah, it goes together really nicely. Just that big petit filou yogurt type note. But on top of this, you have on top of this, you've got a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy kind of thing, and you do have a wee bit of there's a teeny little hint of that McVitie's digestive biscuity character coming out of this one too. Other than that, I don't think there's too much to say about the malt base in this beer, and this is why I say to you that these beers are very straightforward in their aroma profiles. The malty bases are straight shooting. And yeah, you've all got all this big juicy fruity character on top of it. Now, the other thing I'll say about the aroma of this beer is that this one does not contain hops. And you know, that's a bit of a debate amongst sour beer breweries, I guess. Some of them don't add hops because they say it doesn't add anything to the flavour, whereas some breweries will add hops and use that as a way to modify the flavour. When it comes to the old school Belgian sour beers, you know, the Flanders Reds, the Lambics and things like this, what they tended to do was add older hops to them so that the potency of the alpha acids didn't take away from the sourness of the beer. But with the more modern sours, it's kind of, it just depends, it varies from brewery to brewery. Vault City and Holy Goat, for example, in Scotland use hops, whereas the likes of DuckPond, Fermenterna, Elm 11 and breweries like that here in Sweden don't tend to use them. So just varies from brewery to brewery. But nonetheless, I do think with this beer, you do get I always think there's a bit of a placebo effect with these kind of sour beers, because I do get a little hint of like a kind of floral and grassy vibe out of it, and I always think that comes from the berries more than anything else. I do always think the berries give you a little bit of that brambly kind of character, and then that in turn gives you this sort of leafy, grassy type vibe to the beer. So at the front of the nose, I definitely get a little bit of this grassy, floral kind of thing. So yeah, I like how this goes together. Yeah, the green component in this one, as I say, although the green component is quite nice, but the fruity side of this beer is absolutely lovely. You can smell the mango and the passion fruit just giving, you know, sort of mixing in with the kind of yogurty base of the beer. They're forming the backbone of it, but then the blueberry and the raspberry are giving you a little bit of tartness on top and some really nice juiciness. So yeah, the mango and the passion fruit are the ones I think that interact with the malty side of this beer a little bit more, but then the blueberry and the raspberry give you a wee bit of sharpness and tartness and juiciness in this beer. But yeah, beautiful aroma, this one. I think this is going to be very, very nice. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the aroma of this beer. But as I always say, take a bit of time just to ponder over the aroma before you get stuck into it, because there's always some really nice things going on in these beers. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say. So yeah, let's get stuck into this one. This is the Flipper, a 4.5% Gose with raspberry, blueberry, mango and passion fruit from DuckPond Brewing in, Kungston in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast. Slange, skål, cheers. Ooh, that's really nice. I wouldn't expect anything less from DuckPond Brewing. And I said that earlier, I really like the sour beers that these guys are doing. But it might well just be because I haven't had a sour beer in quite a bit of time. But this one, this has quite an impact to it. It is a little touch puckering on its impact, but then it smoothens out really, really nicely. But this is one of the things you always have to be aware of with sour beer. Whenever you try sour beer, it's going to come in with a lovely kind of puckering feel to it, and then it's going to mellow out really nicely. But this one, for me, just from memory of the DuckPond beers, this one actually feels a little bit lighter in its mouthfeel, and it feels a wee bit more puckering on the impact, but it still has that kind of fullness of flavour and creaminess that you would want from this brewery, from this beer, if you are familiar with the brewery, I should say. So I'm going to say straight away, this gets a big thumbs up from me. But first impression as well is that this one leans toward the kind of berry side of things, and from the appearance you might expect that, to be honest with you. I would be curious to know if this is just, you know, a 25 mixture of fruit, or if it does lean any one particular way. But yeah, it's a solid addition to DuckPond's range, this one. I think it goes together very, very well. So yeah, let's kind of break this one down for you and describe it a wee bit more in depth. But this is a lovely Gose beer, this one. I really like this. Yeah, lovely. The one thing I'd say about this is, this, if I think back, I'm trying to think what percentage of alcohol the other beers I've had from DuckPond have been, because the other thing that comes to mind with this one, having taken a few sips of it, is that it feels a little bit lighter than some of the other ones that I've come across, and of course when it's a bit lower in ABV it's going to contain less wheat and oats, so that kind of makes a bit of sense. But yeah, this one, it's full of flavour, don't get me wrong on that, but it just feels a wee bit lighter in its mouthfeel. It's definitely not the thickest of DuckPond beers that I've had. But I think the other one we got at the same time with this was like an 8% or something, so that would be the last sour beer that I had from DuckPond. But yeah, it's certainly not lacking in flavour. As I say, for me, a wee bit light in the mouthfeel, but it has quite an impact to it, this one too. But let's break this beer down and just describe the flavour a wee bit more in depth. So we'll start off with the middle third of the palate, as we always do. So, middle third of the palate. The backbone of the beer, you do get a little hint of, you get a little tiny hint of a kind of, hedgehog, bread crusty sort of thing there. But then on top of that, you can feel the slightly more dense white bready. You can feel that slightly more dense white bready barley malt sort of thing. And the way that goes together is really nice. You can just feel that forming a sort of light backbone of the beer. Toward the front of that middle third of the palate, I do get one or two little hints of a kind of woody note to it as well. But then on top of that, you've got a nice big smooth, you can feel the wheaty character, adding a bit of, you can feel the wheaty character just thickening out all of this beer, which is nice. And then the oats kind of sit on top of that. The wheat, I always find it can sometimes be a little bit dry, but it can also be a very, very smooth, and I think this one really leans towards the smooth side of things. So you can feel the wheat just thickening out that kind of bready backbone of the beer, and on top of that you've got that more dense and kind of creamier oaty layer, and I think that works very, very nicely in this one. Of course, within the oats you start to get that kind of petit filou yogurt type vibe to the beer, and again it's very, very nice in this one. Like I say, not the thickest that you'll find from DuckPond, of course, but at 4.5%, they do a few 6%ers and 8%ers and stuff like this, which will give you a bit more creaminess. But this one, it certainly displays all the kind of same characteristics that you would want from this style. So yeah, that middle of your palate, as I say, thickening wheaty layer, the nice big kind of creamy oaty sort of thing, and in the middle of your palate you've got a circle there which has that kind of petit filou yogurt note, and you will also notice in the dead centre of your palate you've got a little touch of sweetness there, like a slight kind of Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing. But other than that, I really don't think there's anything to report other than that. In terms of the middle third of the palate, it's pretty straightforward. As I say, these beers are very, very straight shooting, but if they're done properly, they work very nicely. On the back third of the palate then, so the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, you do get a little bit of that kind of bread crusty build up there. Then the base of the back third of the palate is a little bit more kind of, it's a little bit more bread crusty, as we say. Then on top of that, you can feel that the white bready layer from the barley malt is there. It feels a little bit taller there and a little bit more kind of fluffy and airy in a sense. You do get a little bit more dryness there. As I always say, the kind of drier, bitter flavours in a beer come out toward the back of the palate a bit more. The sweeter flavours come out further forward. But then on top of that, you can feel a bit of the wheat. The wheat is thickening it out. Then on top of all of that, you do get a wee bit of the kind of yeasty character in this one. And the yeast to me just feels like a very light and airy bready note. but with a wee bit of an almost crackery vibe to it, so you can get that on top of the back third of the palate. But the back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is a little bit taller, then as you come into the middle third of the palate, the flavour's just kind of condensed down a wee bit more and squashed together. But I think that's everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty part of this beer. You do get the impression of a wee bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker sort of thing the further you go into the aftertaste with the malty side of things too. But let's focus on the kind of hoppy side of the beer and fruity side of things. So back corners of the palate, you've got a wee touch of earthiness and a wee bit of a kind of slightly herbal character as well. But as you move toward the kind of front corners of the palate, it's got a little bit more of a kind of floral character to it. So I quite like that. So yeah, you've got a little bit of a more kind of floral type thing, but then round the front curve of the palate, it gives you the impression of being a little bit lighter and grassy. And as I say, this is kind of placebo effect. This beer does not contain hops, but as I say, when you add berries into these beers, I always find that you get a little bit of a leafy kind of thing. It's almost a little bit brambly as well. So yeah, a wee bit floral, a wee bit kind of grassy as well. So I like that. Yeah. So this one is this is very, very nice, this beer in that sense. But other than that, I don't think there's anything to report really on the green component of the beer. So yeah, let's focus on that front third of the palate. So the border region between front third and middle third of the palate, again you get a little bit of a bready build up there. It just feels like a kind of fluffy and but quite dense fresh white bread. Then the base of that kind of front third of your palate is a little bit more it's a little bit of a more kind of, it has a wee bit of the bready character, but it's also got that smooth oaty kind of thing coming forward, and the oats are actually quite sweet in this one. But yeah, it's got that really kind of nice fruity sort of thing. Then on top of that, you get the adjunct fruit coming out as well. But yeah, the thing you always have to watch in these sour beers is when fruit is added into beer as an adjunct, you'll notice that it's usually if there's hops involved, it will suppress the kind of green component of the beer bit, so you can feel some of the fruits just spreading around the edge of the tongue. Now, what I would say is that toward the back of that front third of the palate, that's where you get the mango and the passion fruit giving you these big sort of creamy, fruity vibes to the beer, which I really like. So yeah, you've got that nice big kind of fruity, creamy, it's just like a very smooth, very creamy sort of thing. I think the passion fruit's a wee bit more prominent than the mango for me. The mango gives you a wee bit more juiciness. You can feel, I think the back half of that front third of your palate is the passion fruit, then the mango comes out a wee bit further forward, but on top of that you've got the berries, and it feels right in the dead centre of that front third of your palate. You can feel the sort of more oily blueberry kind of thing, but the raspberries are like right on the tip of the tongue, and they're very sharp and tart, and you can feel that raspberry sharpness just spreading around the sides of your palate there. So I think on the berry side of things, the raspberry's a wee bit more prominent, and for me it's the kind of smooth passion fruit that's a bit more prominent on the tropical side of things. But yeah, it's an interesting beer, this one, from that perspective. It's really oaty and creamy, and I think that you can feel the passion fruit and the oats coming together in this one. But yeah, the raspberries go a long way to giving you some kind of tartness to this beer. So yeah, I do like how this one goes about its business, that's for sure. It's quite an interesting beer, this one. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Definitely up there in terms of the standard that we'd expect from DuckPond Brewing, but one of the lighter ones. This is a lovely summer beer. It'd actually be nice just to sit in the garden in the sun and sip on this one for a wee while. So yeah, the flipper certainly has my seal of approval on it. But let's round off the review with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. So like I said, a bit lighter than some other DuckPond ones we've had, but at 4.5%, you'd kind of expect that. So for me, this one, I would say it's kind of right in the middle of the spectrum. It is, You know, generally speaking, it is quite thick, but as I say, it's kind of right in the middle of the spectrum for one of these more modern sour beers. The carbonation is very smooth. It's got a bit of creaminess to it. You can feel the cleanliness because of the Swedish water and so on, though. But yeah, quite a kind of creamy sour beer, this one for sure. Yeah, in terms of IBUs and things, I think technically speaking, this will be a 0 IBU beer, but you know, you'll probably get like 5 IBUs out of it, a little bit, something like that. But the malt base, as we said, has a little bit, you can feel the barley malt kind of side to it, but on top of that, you get the kind of big, smooth, creamy side of the beer too, and there's also a wee bit of sweetness, but the fruity side of things is nice too. So lovely kind of soft, smooth, tropical side to it, and also a wee bit of a kind of berry, that kind of berry sharpness and tartness too. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business. It gets a big thumbs up from me in that sense. Yeah, I like how this goes together for sure. So have a go at this one if you do get the chance, but generally speaking, just have a go at one of these DuckPond fruity juicy sour beers. They're always very, very nice. So yeah, a bit of a berry leaning one this, but it certainly has a nice kind of smooth creamy backbone to it, and it's impressive. I always think with these beers it's impressive how much flavour you can get out of them at lower ABVs, because 4.5% of course is not a lot. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this was the Flipper, a 4.5% Gose from DuckPond Brewing in Gothenburg up on the Swedish west coast. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from DuckPond Brewing as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the very near future. I do have one more beer from them in the fridge to take a look at, so we'll see about getting that reviewed in the next few videos. But if you're interested in sour beers, DuckPond, Morgendagens, Fermenterarna and Elm 11 are the breweries that you really want to check out in Sweden. But yeah, again, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out DuckPond's Brewing social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below, and let me know your favourite beers from DuckPond Brewing as well. But until the next time, stand just now, and I'll see you guys very soon. The Flipper, 4.5% Gose with raspberry, blueberry, mango and passion fruit from Gothenburg, used to Bluberry, DuckPond Brewing. Catch you guys in the next review. Slange just now.